Welcome to this week's Cattle Call. I'm Susan Littlefield here on the Rural Radio Network. Another interesting week in this market trade. We're going to hit on a couple different things, including where we're sitting with some strong cash markets. The fund roll grilling season is here. You've heard Brad and I talk about how Mother's Day, don't forget, it's coming up a week from this Sunday, is so important to kind of setting the tone and what we see in this grilling season. Seasonalities within this trade as well. Do we have some numbers coming? How is this cattle market looking when it comes to cows and heifers? And of course, we can't forget the House Ag Committee hearing this week that focused on what's been happening in the cattle market. As you see, Brad Kooima joins me. He's with Kooima and Varlick out of Sioux Center, Iowa. So let's just start out with this House Ag Committee hearing that took place on Wednesday. A lot of talk about it. I don't know if the markets reacted much to what they said, but still some interesting information being shared.
It certainly was, and I watched every minute, and I was particularly interested because I was actually scheduled to be one of the people that testified. I was going to be one of the four producers. So if any of you watched it, when Mr. Scott talked about the reason why one of them wasn't there, they were talking about me, Susan. Do I feel let down? I sure do. Do I feel like maybe I let down others? Yeah, I can relate to that feeling too. I became aware of very clearly that if I went, that it was going to turn into a personal attack on me and my character. And I was afraid that there was little to gain and much to lose in terms of me being able to tell the story of the independent cattle producer. It's very unfortunate. It's distasteful. It's politics, I guess. There were certainly some questions there that I would have loved to take a crack at answering, particularly the way they distort these AMAs, the way some of these people talk about AMAs that if this bill passes, that they won't be able to have CAB beef. It's ridiculous that they won't be able to have non-hormone natural cattle. It's stupid. There's such a small percentage of the cattle that do that. We're only talking about a deal that mandates about 20 or 25% of the cash trade. There's plenty of room for all those AMAs, but they want to make it act like, you stole Christmas or something like that because you can't get some formula deal done. That and some other stuff. But on the other hand, I was proud of some of the other stuff that went on. I thought that particularly our congressman from Iowa did a wonderful job of laying out some hard questions for the Packers that, frankly, some of them had a difficult time answering. Where next? It's gonna get there. The House is announcing it today, and the Senate's on their agenda. So I don't know if there's enough votes or not. They tell me it's close. We'll see. It should be exciting.
Well, I wanted to mention too for folks that you did submit written testimony instead. So the voice of that independent cattleman was definitely shared as well.
Yes, I did. Thank you for that.
All right, we got to talk some serious markets that are going on here as we look at what has been seen in the trade. Some strong cash numbers. Good thing to hear for our producers in the north.
It's nice to talk about the markets, huh? Instead of watching Brad get all wishy-washy. Beginning of the week, I said to a few people in the office and customers, I said, it's going to be interesting to see how the market handles it. We've got one of those times where the fundamentals are clearly positive. Cash trade, you and I have talked about the tightness of supply here in April and May in the north, and it's real. It is tight. It's as tight as I can remember. In fact, it probably harkens back to, more than a couple of years ago. And even the numbers in the south, I think, are getting kind of snug. Remind me of the 1st of November. And if you remember what happened last year in December, we had a nice rally. So anyway, cash market has had a good rally. I know personally of cattle that have sold as high as 148.50 picked up this week here in Iowa. There's been all kinds of cattle traded at 146 to 7. Some are old croppers. A lot of them are calves. By the way, Texas has managed to get 140. I don't suppose that has anything to do, right, with the fact that they don't negotiate any cattle down there. Sorry, cheap shot across the bow. So you would think then, just how cheap does June cattle have to be when you got a market that's 146 or something? Well, there you're talking about basis issues. And we're starting to get out there near where it's about as bad as I've ever seen it. Now, in 2017, it was really lousy like this too. 8, 10, 12. For a little while, then it was 17 under for a little while, futures under cash. Um, and I think it's a reflection here of, um, first of all, the lack of a long speculator. Our open interest is extremely low, 300,000. Nobody seems to dare to step in front of it. You don't have that old, the Charlie McVeigns, the Gotches, those guys. Now you only have the funds left, and the funds are busy trading crude oil and corn, right? And stuff that's inflationary sensitive more so than the cattle have been. So what's happened here lately is we've got funds selling the June because that's the time of the month that's they roll their longs back. So you can sure see it again today with June, the weakest by far. They're actually buying some deferreds. They're buying some August, but I think they're flipping all the way back to October and December, which would make sense to me. So the fund selling kind of underwhelmed the strong cash so far here, unfortunately.
Well, we've had this conversation over the last couple of weeks of the number of heifers and the number of cows that are being sold. Has there been a slowdown to those numbers at this point?
Not yet. And unfortunately, we've got a summertime of selling a lot of heifers yet, Susan. They
Yeah.
all went on feed last fall. Instead of being prospects for cows, obviously. Now, the one thing that could change quickly here, and it really depends on what region. I spent some time talking this morning to North Dakota and eastern Montana. And I'm not a rancher, and these guys caution me that just like one robin doesn't make it spring, one snowstorm doesn't give you grass for a whole year. But they are optimistic cautiously. They've been getting some moisture. They've been getting a bunch of snowpack the last little while and some rain. Eastern North Dakota particularly has really come back here. So the one thing that could change would be that beef cow slaughter could stop real fast, and that would be helpful. Now, I think as the market looks forward, you can, the tilt of the market's already there. Where December cattle are $15 higher than August cattle, and I believe that that's perfectly that should be given what the fundamentals are in my view. But I think we got to remember here, guys, we've got to kill a bunch of cattle here yet this summer. Now, bad markets linger way longer than we think they ought to, right, Susan? But good markets linger like that too. So I think this good cash market, you might be surprised. We may linger, and I'm not saying you're going to be at 148 for a month, but you could be north of 140, I believe. And because what's to incentive a producer to hold cattle? Cheap feed? Good Lord, I would think not. Corn's $8.5. How about, well, the futures are telling me it's going to rally. By the way, June cattle are below 134. The futures are telling you this thing's going lower. So you're going to sell cattle as quickly as you can, which is not bearish. So I really think that the market's maybe going to linger just a little better than most people think for another 30 days or so.
Well, the good news is though, grilling season is upon us, and hopefully that'll help at least to move some prices or move some product across that countertop if the prices don't weigh in on the pocketbook.
Yeah, I was hoping they're going to spend a little more time on that yesterday. That not only the producer perhaps getting taken advantage of, but the consumer I think probably is here too, right? Yeah, the best beef feature weekend of the year, like I've said before, is Mother's Day, so that is coming up, and then warmer weather, Father's Day, Memorial Day. I don't think we're going to have too much trouble moving the meat. In fact, I heard that the meat moved really well today. So,
all right, we'll catch up with you next week to see what's happening.
Sounds good. Thanks. And I hope you feel better. And thanks for everything
Thanks.
you do out there quietly, putting yourself at risk too. So thank you.
Thanks. For listeners that don't know, we were talking about a fire that I was helping to fight on Saturday of last week. Want to remind folks, commodity futures and options involve a substantial risk of loss not suitable to all investors. And that's this week's Cattle Call on the Rural Radio Network.